Let's talk about this other story. So Will brought this up to us before the show. I missed this one. Judge holds Washington, D.C. jail officials in contempt in a January 6th riot case. Basically, they say that Judge Royce Lamberth summoned the jail officials as part of the criminal case into Christopher Warrell, a member of the Proud Boys, who had been charged in the January 6th attack at the Capitol. He'd been accused of attacking police officers with pepper spray gel, and prosecutors have alleged he traveled to Washington and coordinated with Proud Boys. It's clear to me the civil rights of the defendant were violated by the D.C. Department of Corrections, Lamberth said. I don't know if it's because he's a January 6th defendant or not. The judge ordered Quincy Booth, the director of the city's Department of Corrections, and Wanda Patton, the warden of the D.C. jail, to be held in contempt of court. While he did not impose any sanctions or penalties, the judge said he was referring the matter to the Justice Department to investigate whether the civil rights of the inmates in the jail are being violated. This is big. So this is over. What was it? He had a surgery he needed or something?
He had a broken wrist that he got in May, Mr. Warrell, who's also suffering
did he
from
get
cancer.
did he get the break in jail?
Yes, he got the break while in custody.
May,
Apparently, and it still apparently has not yet gotten the necessary surgery to do it. You know, this is a very, very basic thing we expect from our jails.
They're torturing these guys, man.
I mean, the only, the best explanation, the most charitable one is just pure incompetence, right? Like the DC jail is just this bad for everybody, which is not exactly, heartwarming, right? Either way, you're either intentionally making these people's lives miserable, or I know the DC defendants or the January 6th defendants are kind of in their own separate facility right now, is my understanding. They were kept segregated from the rest of the general population, and maybe that facility has its just own huge problems.
Well, if you remember last year when this story was developing, I was even telling people, this year, earlier this year at around February, I was bringing up this conversation where there was already reports of torture, of people being put in solitary confinement, of people being beat back then. So to hear that some of these people are still in solitary confinement, that they're being held in their own unit, I mean, this definitely seems overboard. I mean, solitary confinement for walking into a building. I mean, some of the people did commit some crimes, but even then, when you compare it to some of the crimes happening in major urban areas now, I mean, there's not much to compare here.
Or just, I mean, even the treatment of the rioters, the Antifa rioters, over the course of the past few years. I mean, there was actually one case, Judge Trevor McFadden, he was giving a sentence and somebody who had pled to misdemeanor, and I think the government was asking for 3 months in jail or something like that, and he gave them like 3 months probation and like no jail time at all, and basically said, like, I don't think you guys are serious. You guys have not treated these the same way as the defendants. Like, there is criminal activity here, so there's going to be a punishment. You pled to a misdemeanor, that's a crime, but like, you guys you're wildly overblowing this with asking for serious incarceration.
We got to be real on part of it, though, is that the left has experience.
Yeah.
And not just with their tactics while they insurrect, but also the legal apparatus. So when on January 7th, it was January of 2017, 21st, I think, it was Trump's inauguration. I was there. Luke, you were there.
Yep.
We were running through the streets, and it's really funny. What happened was we were running, and there was this moment where Luke and I made two different choices. A row of police were forming, and Luke just ran for it.
And I got pepper sprayed very heavily for it because they were spraying the pepper spray. And I was like, I'm seeing the circle. I'm like, it's either now or never I get out. And
I decided to go into the stairwell of a building. Unfortunately, that's the decision every other Antifa made. And the cops immediately surrounded the whole group. So this whole group of people, which was several hundred people, ultimately, after like an hour, I got released. They said I had been arrested 3 times. A lot of people, they don't know what arrest means. I wasn't processed or charged. I was arrested. But eventually, a supervisor came out, showed him my press pass. He pulled me and some other journalists out. But all of those people were charged, and they were charged with conspiracy because they couldn't prove any one person was the person who was setting things on fire, that torched the limousine or threw bricks through windows. And so they said, charge them all with conspiracy, which doesn't fly. The state has to prove you as a person did something wrong, and they can't prove simply by wearing a hoodie. This is the tactic, and it's why they do it.
Yeah.
Regardless, when it came to January 6th, even if people were wearing masks or otherwise, they went above and beyond to torture these people in prison. These Antifa people it was overnight in jail, and the next day they walked out to thunderous applause of people outside. These are people who are running through the streets, setting fires, beating, smashing windows, destroying property. They torched a limo that belonged to some immigrant who had a small business. These people get a slap on the wrist.
And a lot of their charges were dropped, too. I remember hearing a lot about their charges. The mainstream media was actually talking about it, how this was a travesty of injustice, how this was political prosecution. And then I remember a lot of people who were part of it got off. But you compare that to the story of Thomas Caldwell, who he's a 66-year-old Navy and FBI veteran. And according to him, he was never inside of the Capitol. He never was a part of Oath Keepers. He never committed any acts of violence against the state that day, but the state charged him as an Oath Keeper leader, saying that he led the charge, organized everything, and put him in solitary confinement for 49 days. He was just able to go out of solitary confinement. He's speaking out against this story. Thomas Caldwell, he is raising money because the legal fees, he says, is exacerbating him and destroying his livelihood, and he's saying that his farm's going to be taken away soon. So he's still facing some legal court proceedings, but hearing stories of this 66-year-old guy who, again, is an FBI veteran, is an old Navy military member, to hear this kind of happen to me definitely shows me a totally different picture than what happened during the Trump inauguration.
And look at that woman who the feds raided her house in Alaska.
Wrong person.
Wrong person.
Because someone on the airlines, she got in an argument over a mask on one of the airlines, and they snitched and they called the FBI, and the FBI followed up on this story very vigilantly. Yeah.
I mean,
diligent.
Both vigilant and diligent.
We get to a point with these conversations where I'm just like, can we just pull words out of a hat to make headlines? Like if the subject is the right gets censored, the libertarian, the freedom, the anti-war types are the ones who get censored, and the establishment shills and the Democrats don't. And the law enforcement is heavily weighted against people who are in support of freedom and opposition to the establishment. And Antifa gets a free pass, and the Proud Boys rot in prison. Why? It's almost like, do we even need NPR to tell us this is happening? We could just be like, hey, here's the news, guys. The January 6th defendants are being tortured. Antifa is being let go. Moving on. I don't need a source for that because it just happens all the time.
Right. I mean, I think as you mentioned, our side is very bad at crime in a way that the left is not. The left is just much better at crime.
Yeah, they are.
I'm reminded of, Charles Barkley talking about Jussie Smollett and being like, America, don't commit crimes with checks. Well, I want to be like, America, don't enter the Capitol without a mask on. You're done that way. But also clearly there's just this enormous double standard in the way they're treated. I'm reminded of like Agamben and the state of exception. The sovereign is he who decides in the exception. And it's like, we have this world where, this is like the idea that we have equal justice between different political sides is a total fiction. That what we're seeing is a total joke. And
even if Republicans take back the House, they're not going to do anything. They won't impeach Biden. Yeah, they should. They won't.
He should be impeached. I mean, he could have been impeached the moment he did that thing with the eviction moratorium where he said, right, I don't think this is constitutional, but I'm going to do it anyway.
And then the Supreme Court said you can't do it. And he goes, yeah, I'll do it again.
Yeah. And then it's like, I know it's probably going to be found unconstitutional. I just don't really care. And it'll last a couple of months for it to go through the court system. And that's time that they won't be evicted. So that's fine. That's impeachable. You have a duty to take care that the laws are faithfully executed. So if you knowingly violate the Constitution,
it's exhausting, man.
It's impeachable. It's just, but it's, they're so feckless in comparison to the Democrats who are already talking about just putting Republican political operatives in jail.
People got to get active in the primaries and the state level. That's everything. But I saw that Kevin McCarthy has record fundraising. He had $60 million or something in the first 9 months of the year. And I'm just like, why?
He's so,
they don't. They're on the same team as the Democrats. It's a show.
Exactly. This is why when you brought up Clapper, I thought that James Clapper sitting in front of Congress testifying, saying we did not wittingly spy on the American people, blatant lie, and then they let him go. They still haven't charged him with any kind of perjury or anything. It's beyond.
General Hayden, who's a part of NewsGuard, literally said the same thing. Former CIA and NSA head said, no, we're not spying on anyone.
It's beyond politics. It's like the administrative state is protecting their own.
Yeah.
Maybe Biden's part of that. Maybe
of course
Fauci's part of that.
Of course he is.
It's a
big club and you ain't in it.
I don't think you can use politics to defend against that.
I mean, that's ultimately there is a world where you can, but the administrative state is subordinate to the White House, and a White House that knew what they were doing and was really like aggressive with their use of power could really do real damage to the administrative state. The Trump White House was not that White House. It just was because they were real cautious and weren't willing to, make the changes that needed to be made.
Obama, you think he knew how, but just was co-opted or something? Or
Obama was part of it. Like, Obama was the administrative state's candidate. That's a good way to think of Biden. Biden is like, Biden is team administrative state. The entire premise of like Democrat presidents is like, we will get out of the way and let the bureaucracy do their thing, right? That's basically how they operate. Like, Biden's not, that's so the idea that you have a Democrat president really do anything about the administrative state. Are you kidding? And that's their base. That's the whole premise of electing them in the first place.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.